Ragtime the musical is tripping balls. That is the only way I can describe it. It is a 2 hour, however many minutes, acid trip written by people who clearly. Okay, have you ever seen the Nostalgia Critic review of Captain Planet? And when he finds out they're going to do an episode about AIDS, he starts waving frantically at the camera saying, "No, back away, you're not talented enough." That is what I feel like went into this musical. I feel like there were people who were very passionate about telling this story, and yet had no freaking clue how to do it, or what they were doing, or how narratives work. And so we got this confused, piled up mess of a thing. And it's like I honestly don't know how they looked at this finished product and said, "Yes, that is what we want to put on stage," because I don't understand how anybody can go to this musical and come out like, "Yes, that is a coherent story I just watched." Because it's not. Like, okay, there are it's supposed to be, I think, sort of a parable about the American dream, and it's set in 1906. We know it's 1906 because the Evelyn Nesbit Harry Thaw murder just happened, and there's a whole song about it, which has absolutely no bearing on the plot, but I'll get to that later. Um, and so it's 1906, and there's these three families. One is like just the sort of prototypical middle class white, and they're just called mother, father, older son, and the younger son, whose name is Edgar, and father is going off to explore the North or South Pole. I don't remember which. And of course, mother's all sad because he's left them behind, and I don't know why exploration of the North or South or whatever pole is considered a prototypical part of the American dream story, but it's not the biggest problem this musical has by far. And then there's this other family, this man who's just called Tate, and his daughter who've immigrated from Eastern Europe and are like looking for a new life in America. And there seems to be some mystery about the girl's mother because he just keeps telling her, don't give up your name and don't say where your mother is. Like maybe he killed her and pushed her off the boat. I don't know, but they never really resolve it anyway. So whatever. And then there's this couple, this black couple, a man named Coalhouse Walker and his girlfriend Sarah. And at the beginning of the musical, Sarah gives birth to a baby, and because she's an unwed mother, and I guess she sort of panics, she abandons it, and she and the baby are going to be taken off to jail. But then the mother of the middle class North Pole exploring family decides to take them both in because she's just nice like that, I guess. And and then Coalhouse, who is the baby's father, obviously for some reason he and Sarah broke up before he knew about the baby, and I don't know why, because it would seem pretty reasonable to tell him, considering the fate of unwed mothers in 1906, but what do I know? I didn't write this musical. Um, so he somehow finds out where Sarah is, and he keeps showing up at their house and, like, asking to see her, and she keeps saying no for some reason that I don't understand because it prolongs the plot, I guess. And so he becomes friends with the mother character, who's, I guess, not a racist somehow for some reason in 1906. Um, and eventually Sarah decides to get back together with him, and they're gonna have a family, and yada yada yada. Um, and he plays them ragtime music, so we got the title. Yay! And meanwhile, Tate and his daughter have absolutely no connection to any of this. They're just living in a tenement, finding out how much tenement life freaking sucks. Which, it did, but I'm not really sure what bearing it has on the plot. Um, at one point, Tate and his daughter and the mother character and her younger son, Edgar, meet up when they're out for a day in the country. And the son, Edgar, who seems to be psychic somehow, except I don't really, I don't know. He seems to be psychic because he keeps predicting stuff. And anyway, the kid is like, "Oh, we're gonna know them in the future, Mom." And she says, "Don't say that. They're dirty and poor." And I'm like, "But but she's supposedly so tolerant because she let Sarah and the baby stay." I don't know. Anyway, So Coalhouse and Sarah are gonna get married, and but then his car gets vandalized by this racist douche guy who's like a fire chief or a fireman or something, and he gets so pissed about this that he decides he's not going to get married until somebody repays him for the car, which seems like a really stupid reason not to get married and really unfair to Sarah because she didn't break the car, and even more unfair to their kid who's still living as a bastard child. And can I remind you all that this is 1906? Um, and uh, so like he keeps writing letters and demanding that somebody pay attention to him, but the white lawyers won't listen to him, and the black lawyers are like, well, this isn't really a good test drive civil rights case. It's just a car. Get over it. So no one will listen to him. And then at some point, the president rolls into town, and Sarah's like, well, clearly I should go talk to the president because he'll help us fix the car. And so she does. And then when she approaches him, the Secret Service are like, oh my God, she's got a gun, and they shoot her, and she dies. And okay, I have no trouble believing that people in positions of authority in America, especially in this time period, are trigger happy assholes who will gladly shoot black people for no apparent reason. But it's like, and then Kohlhouse goes completely nuts, and I'm not saying that in an ableist thing. I mean, he goes nuts, um, and he goes out and starts burning down firehouses because the person who vandalized his car is a fireman, and he says he's going to keep burning firehouses down until someone listens to his demands, which seems really I don't even know. Also, somewhere in the middle of all this, Tate invents animation, like literally a flip book. He invents it for his daughter, and then somebody buys the patent, and he becomes rich, and he renames himself Baron Ashkenazi? I think it's Ashkenazi. I don't know, and I'm too lazy to look up the name at the moment. Um, Whatever, he's rich now, and he's a baron, or he takes the name Baron, even though he's not, because it's American, they don't have titles. So that's happening somewhere in the middle of all this, but Coalhouse is still burning down firehouses, which seems really counterintuitive, because, like, it's a firehouse. They are trained to fight fires. You would think they would know how to fight fires in their own house, but no, because he keeps burning them down. And the mother character is still raising the baby because Coalhouse clearly isn't doing it. He's too busy burning down firehouses. And social services tries to take it for some reason, so she gathers up her kids and moves to Atlantic City, and her Edgar kid is still, and he's predicting stuff that Coalhouse is going to do for some reason, I don't know. Also, he predicts the assassination of Franz Ferdinand. I, I, I don't know. And then Coalhouse like takes over this library, and he's basically holding the building hostage. And they call in Booker T. Washington, who was in the neighborhood, I guess, to go in and talk to him and like hostage negotiate the place. And he does, but then Coalhouse gets shot leaving the building anyway, and that's sort of the end of that story. And also, the mother character, her husband dies, and a year later she marries the Baron, and they all move to California together, and he's so inspired by their little multi-racial brood of children, he invents the Little Rascals. And that's the end of the musical. And I don't understand what was gained through this. Like, there is a way you could tell a story like this. I am fully supportive of telling stories like this, but you need to understand how. You need to understand how to weave these stories together. You need to understand what thematic point you're driving at, because there doesn't appear to be a thematic point. Like, there is no way I can see that all of these stories tie together. Like, Tate and Coalhouse have almost nothing in common, except that they both start out pretty poor and have a kid. And their stories don't go in any recognizable directions. Like, I don't even understand what the mother character was doing, aside from someone clearly needed to adopt the baby after his parents died, slash went insane, slash died. Um, and like, I don't understand what this is saying. Like, and there's also musical numbers. I mentioned the Evelyn Nesbit musical number earlier. Like, there's a song called "Crime of the Century," which is basically her testifying at the at Harry Thaw's trial. Um, And there's another musical number, I don't remember what it's called, but it's about baseball. It's a sort of interlude during Colehouse's firehouse rampage where Edgar's father takes him to a baseball game and he's like, "This isn't a gentlemanly sport at all," because everyone's yelling abuse at each other. And it, and I, what, why? What was the purpose of this? I don't understand. And there's a musical number about Henry Ford who shows up for some reason. I guess because Colehouse has the car, and he's like, "Oh, Henry Ford, your car's so great." And Henry Ford's like, "Yeah, I know. I'm so awesome." And I don't understand why. Um, and like, oh, and there's another song called "The Night That Goldman Spoke" at Union Square, which is actually a good song that I like. And yeah, that's the other thing. There's a lot of cameos from famous figures of the area, like Nesbitt and Henry Ford and J.P. Morgan and who else? And Emma Goldman and Booker T. Washington, but they just basically like pop in and pop out. There's no real reason for them to be there besides sort of name checking them, and it makes no sense. Um, and I don't, like, literally, I have no clue what any of this accomplished. Like, there are ways to tell this story. There are, like, if you want to tell a story about the American dream, like, yes, why don't you tell a story about an immigrant family arriving in New York and the different people they interact with? Like, I know the musical Rags was sort of telling a similar story, and I know it bombed horribly, and I can't really say why because I've like listened to one song from it, and yeah, I don't know. I don't know what happened with Rags, but at least from the synopsis I've read, it made sense. Like, it had a beginning, it had an end, it had a through line. This has none of those things. It's just like, I keep saying I don't understand, but I don't. I don't understand. What did I just listen to? I, like, what? What? What the hell was that? I feel like I've just dropped acid, and it's like, yeah, these people clearly wanted to tell this story, but they didn't know how, and apparently they based it on some novel called Ragtime, um, which is apparently a fairly old novel, and maybe that should have been your first clue, because, like, old novels can be adapted to stage, but you gotta be careful with it. Like, there's a reason the Les Mis musical adaptation didn't include the 5 chapters on Jean Valjean wandering around in the sewer. There's a reason for that. Um, and I don't, like, literally, I'm just so confused. I don't know what's happening around me anymore. Um, so yeah, that's Ragtime. That's Ragtime the musical, which is currently playing at the Shaw Festival, which is why I looked it up. And and I don't know if I should go see it. Actually, I'll ask you guys, should I go see this? Because I like, on the one hand, it's not very often that you're going to see this amount of pure, concentrated batshittery on stage. Like, it's a once in a lifetime opportunity, but on the other hand, do I really want to spend that much money on something this ridiculous? So I put it in your hands. Should I go see Ragtime the Musical at Shaw? And should I come back and report to you all just how more batshit it is on stage than when I'm just listening to the cast recording? Because the cast recording's pretty fucked up, yo. And you can gather most of the plot from it, and what I couldn't gather from the cast recording I looked up on Wikipedia. But but good God. Good God, y'all. I don't know.
See, my people, well, here's my theory of what this country is moving toward. Every worker, a cog in motion, well, that's the notion of Henry Ford.